Ye VHS Tapes of Olde is a channel that joined YouTube on the 14th of April 2019 under the premise of a channel meant to archive VHS footage, with a particular cassette sparking a great deal of interest within the uploader. The video cassette in question is the collection of a children's cartoon from episodes 9 to 12, going by the name of Monsters from Planet Monsterous. And while the name and style might initially suggest an innocuous television program aimed at children, the episodes become increasingly darker, mysterious and disturbing with each video, and I can guarantee you there is far than it meets the eye to this series. Don't let its simplistic nature at first fool you the same way it fooled me the first time. With this video, I'm going to attempt to analyze and dissect what could potentially be one of the greatest and yet most underrated ARGs of all time, that for some reason managed to go under everyone's radar for more than 4 years. With this being said, I'm going to separate this video in two parts. The first part is going to be dedicated to the viewing of the 9 videos posted on the channel so far. We're going to take a look at each and every separate video, discussing our findings gradually as they appear, while the second part of the video will be dedicated to a more in-depth analysis of certain elements showcased in various bits and pieces within said videos. I would highly recommend for you to watch this series on your own first if you haven't before watching this video. It will take you around 45 minutes and it's an experience I totally recommend. You can come back after that to this video and we can rewatch the episodes together, this time with my own personal input and analysis of each episode. And now, let's begin. The first episode starts rather normally. We are giving a perspective of the channel's uploader unboxing one of the VHS tapes from his collection, Monsters from Planet Monsterous. We can already notice some unusual details regarding this tape right off the bat, starting with a handwritten note on the top left corner of the tape reading, "Trinity is 81. The box and the tape itself provide other interesting pieces of information. Unfortunately, due to the quality of the video uploaded, they are rather hard to read, but they will be available later on in the series on a much higher quality, so don't make my mistake and squint your eyes too hard attempting to read them. We'll go over them later. The first tape starts us off in the middle of a show allegedly meant for children, created through stop-motion animation, where right off the bat we can observe some of the main characters of the series, a girl, a boy, and a wizard. Their names will be revealed later on.
Poisonous used in his attack.
Please, hurry.
I'm afraid these tests will take time, which we're running out
Can't you just take the potion to cure all kinds of things?
The episode shows the boy, apparently ill, laying in bed. The wizard is proposing the possibility of running various tests in an attempt to find the cure for whatever might be plaguing the boy. But the problem is, the tests will take time, and they are running out of it. The best solution for this dilemma will be for the boy to ingest a specific slice of cake, which we are not offered many details on, as the tape seems to be heavily damaged or corrupted, and thus the tape ends playing and the first episode ends. Episode 2 appears to be a direct continuation of the first episode, as the two children find themselves on an island made out of candy and cake. The children meet up with a monster made out of sweets with cherries for eyes as they begin bargaining for a piece of its cake, likely the cure for the ailment affecting the boy. But the monster refuses, threatening the two children instead. beginning to chase after them.
We only want a small piece.
Yeah? Well, this cake wants a piece of you! Roar!
With that, the episode ends, beginning a new segment showcasing various television ads for other shows and programs. Now, for anyone familiar with VHS technology, this wouldn't strike as too odd. Anyone who used to record television programs through VHS will sometimes leave the recording going through the ad breaks, which will result in segmented movies or cartoons, separated by various advertisement interruptions. I know this out of experience because I have a VHS television as well, but this already strikes me as an odd element. The box that we saw in the first episode seems to be directly correlated to the TV show. Why would the producers distribute and sell their own TV series along the ads being ran on the television? This is something that the uploader also remarks in the video's description. What's odd is that this tape seems to contain commercial breaks, as if they were recorded off the TV. The cassette looks like official merchandise, with box art and labels and everything, but apparently it's a taped broadcast. The ads are for shows and products, services that I mostly can't find any details about anywhere on the net, much like the show itself. In some cases, I can't even form a clue as to what's being advertised. Either way, the first ad that we see is one for another show, likely aimed at children as well, called Techno Wars, a cartoon featuring a group of robots fighting other robots. The next ad features a sock puppet of a camel smoking a cigar, promoting a business called Boris's Haberdashery, open from Monday to Thursdays from 9 AM to 5 PM, along with an address. This doesn't really tell us that much, but if we go back for a moment and pause the video right here, we can notice the room where the ad was filmed reflected in the camel's sunglasses, which from now I'm going to refer to as Boris. On the right lens, we can notice something resembling an old camera, while on the left, we can notice various computer monitors reading a rather unintelligible text. The only clearly visible detail in this scene is the theta symbol from the Greek alphabet. Keep this one in mind, as theta will become a very relevant detail later on in the series. Now another ad starts, this time for a new model of a car. Everything seems normal within this particular ad, excepting the part where it's mentioned that the car features a dayside engine. Dayside is a word used in order to refer to the side of a planet that is facing its primary star, essentially the part of the planet where it's currently day. So with this knowledge in mind, the following question pops up. What is a dayside engine? Is it an engine that can only function during the day? Without further explanation, the ad ends, and what is likely to be the car's manufacturing company's logo appears on the screen: Kia. Now, Kia is a real car brand, but Kia's logo, first of all, is different, and the name is spelled with an I, not with a Y. This might be our first indication that these tapes might belong to an alternate reality different from ours. The next ad features two halves of an object on a simple background, with a text reading, "Hot Dog Monarch and the US Buyer Product Safety Department want you to know about the mandatory recall of the Isekaimun Iseball toy. Corruption reported," but the audio seems to heavily differ from the text presented.
Hot Dog Monarch and the U.S. Buyer Product Safety Department want you to know about the mandatory recall of any children watching this commercial.
With the narrator specifically saying, the mandatory recall of any children watching this. Judging by this, it seems that the children themselves are the one being recalled, not the product. A final text reading, "We didn't make up Isekaimun, you did," is shown at the end, along with a second text reading "points" and what appears to be a code. The term isekai is a term used to describe a genre of anime or manga in Japan, where the plot revolves around the main character ending up in a different reality. This, along with the ad heavily resembling the Burger King Pokeball Recall PSA from the year 2000, heavily enforces once again the idea of these tapes belonging to an alternate reality, something that will be confirmed later on in the series. The next program is perhaps the most confusing so far, especially without context. It serves as part of the solution for this ARG central puzzle, but for now we are going to leave it at that, and we'll tackle it on later on the video. A variety of mathematical equations are shown over the background of a black and white lava lamp. This is our first clear introduction in the theme of duality, a theme that will become heavily recurrent throughout the series. Afterwards, a heavily corrupted ad for a brand called Nesquik is shown. Unless you've been living under a rock, I'm pretty sure you can figure out what this one is referencing. Unfortunately, past this point, the uploader informs us that his camera ran out of space and stopped recording. He informs us that since the video static corruption was so bad, we didn't miss up on much anyway, with the only relevant detail being the start of the next ad featuring a voiceover narrating on nights when we can see utopia, along with the image of a small bird in a cage and the cage clamped in the jaws of a fly trap. The tape stops afterwards. Episode 3 is where this series starts taking a far more mysterious and darker turn. Right off the bat, within the first frames of the video, throughout all of the static, we can make out the phrase, "Win one of the 3 holidays to Gehenna." If you don't know what that is, Gehenna is a valley surrounding Jerusalem. Gehenna is also mentioned within the Hebrew Bible as the place where some of the kings of Judah had sacrificed their children by fire, becoming a cursed location by Jeremiah, a biblical prophet. Within rabbinic literature, Gehennom is associated with divine punishment as the destination of the wicked for the atonement of their sins, with the word Gehenna also being translated as the word hell. So yeah, we are not even a full second in within the 3rd episode and we've already been offered the chance to win a trip to hell. Wondrous. Anyway, as the video continues, we are shown a commercial for a board game called Faces of Terror. The board game seems rather simple. Judging by the video, players control a variety of animal-like creatures on a board, moving them over certain spaces on the map while drawing cards that can be used as abilities. The ability shown in the commercial, Slow the Clock, instructs the player to throw a dice, with its effect changing based on the dice's result. Note that using this ability seems to have the additional effect of increasing the player's corruption. I want you to keep this term in mind, as it will become rather recurrent during the series. The next program is perhaps the most cryptic one so far. A new character, which I will be referring to as Dual, is seen talking to the audience about letters, numbers, and the importance of their values. Dual's body and clothes keep shifting from a black to white color, once again suggesting the recurring theme of duality, hence the nickname I gave him. At the same time, various letters are seen in the background transforming into numbers. These letters will be extremely important later on in helping us solve one of the major puzzles in the series. But for now, let's continue watching. As the camera pans out, we're offered a view from above of an 18 by 18 grid with irregularly colored squares. Once again, a very important element that will become extremely relevant down the road. The program ends and we are presented with a text reading Gematsis. All futures have been written. The next commercial appears to be one for chocolate. A man is seen leaving what we can assume to be a factory and flying away, as we are presented with the product itself, Bloccolate White Mint, and the slogan, "You'll all be sweet." Following next is a short program called A Sermon from the Pulpit Pals. I will let this one play out in its entirety and then we'll discuss it. So the first detail you've probably noticed while watching this program is the apple. Is that an apple? Dude, I actually have no idea what fruit is that. Saying that this symbol is exhausting. You might be wondering as to the meaning of that symbol, and to that I'll say yes. Me too. I want you to keep in mind that symbol because once again it will be one of the key elements within this ARG. For now, let's refer to that symbol as the crossword, because to me it resembles a sword with a cross drawn over it. I know I'm probably wrong, but for now I'll just be using that name as a placeholder. Another part that I found to be of particular interest is the lemon saying, "A symbol can mean different things to different people, but who decides its true meaning? What's worth more, the creator's intention or the majority's belief? Maybe neither." While this is probably relevant towards deciphering the meaning and usage of the crossword, I've personally interpreted this particular sentence as a meta-commentary of the author on its own ARG. What's worth more, the author's hidden story behind the ARG, or the story that the majority of the public will create around it? Maybe neither. Either way, there's a detail here that you've probably missed when watching this for the first time, and I won't blame you, I did too. In fact, I've noticed it only after many times of rewatching this particular episode. After the lemon finishes its speech, before leaving, 3 additional dialogues bubbles pop up for a few frames, which I will try to enhance as much as possible and leave them on the screen for you to read. For the life of me, I couldn't begin to try and tell you what the next fruit is. I've never seen anything like that, and I hope I never will. Either way, this fruit tells the viewers, in this case an intended audience of kids, that each of us holds a seed within ourselves, and that's what makes us special. Once again, this is an important detail that will become more relevant later. Boy, there sure are plenty of these details, huh? I will admit I'm not kidding when I say that I've probably rewatched each and every one of these videos at least 20 times each, and on every rewatch I'd find some new kind of correlation towards things that were presented in past and future episodes. The next advertisement regards a new video game called Frode Hopman's Adventure. Currently, I'm not going to go in depth about this one, it's something we'll talk about later. All I'm gonna say is that Frode Hopman's Adventure has a soundtrack that definitely slaps. Another program follows. This one is called What's in the Cards. where seemingly random cards are drawn from a deck offering general world trivia and random facts about the universe this program derived from. The first card is not of any particular interest. I mean, if you drink coffee, maybe. The second card is especially important though. There is magic all around you, and it shares its name with the glass that the little fat kid, or whatever it's called, left behind in the humans only mirror world. Their version isn't magical though, maybe a still bit dangerous. I think that the little fat kid is a reference to Lil Boy and Fat Man, the two nuclear bombs that were dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. If that's the case, then the glass that was left behind by the little fat kid could be trinitite, a glassy residue left on the desert floor after the Trinity nuclear bomb test. I'm not entirely sure whether trinitite was left behind after Hiroshima and Nagasaki as well, but I couldn't find any other logical association between the words glass left behind and the little fat kid. Keep in mind, we are essentially working with assumptions and conjecture here. The card also details that our version of trinitite could still be a bit dangerous, which would make sense for what essentially will be nuclear residue. This card is of particular interest to us. It details that each face draws from a different one of the 10 power sources, and only one can be active at once, but the crossword plus symbol could draw from all of the sources at the same time. I'm not entirely sure whether this has any connection with the first advertisement we saw, the one for the board game Faces of Terror, but the possibility is there. We're also exposed to the existence of another superior symbol than crossword, crossword plus, which according to this card seems to be the strongest symbol of them all, to the point of being not only feared, but not allowed to even exist. The next program, I have no words for. I'll just let it play in its entirety and you can draw your own conclusions. Did you catch that at the end? Let me replay it for you on a higher volume.
Don't visit your children.
Finally, we are presented with a schedule for that particular day's programs. 4:30, Monsters from Planet Monsterous. At 5, Full Growners. And at 5:30, the news. If it wasn't evident enough that this entire channel belongs to a different reality, I'd say that the news anchor with green skin and horns should be the final nail in the coffin. Either way, we are presented with a few seconds from the 10th episode of Monsters from Planet Monsterous, where the kids are in pursuit of someone called Magicus after accidentally breaking the wizard's wand.
Ready for landing. Gee, I feel awful for breaking a wizard's wand. This is the worst thing I've ever done.
Don't beat yourself up. I'm sure he'll forgive you once we catch Magicus.
But I don't think I'll be able to forgive him. What if I feel this way for the rest of my life?
Save it for later. We've got company.
The episode ends on a cliffhanger as the two kids encounter what appears to be a cloud monster as the tape continues corrupting, finally cutting off. Episode 4 starts off with the image of a few balls rolling, in what appears to be a lottery-like device. Each ball bears a letter, either H or V, for horizontal or vertical, and a number. After 6 balls rolled, the lottery stops and the results are announced.
17 horizontal, or as my wife likes to call it, a bit of a kiss, which is the funny one and just the rookie. And our final line for today is vertical 7.
It is at that moment that we are presented with perhaps the most important piece of this ARG's puzzle. an 18 by 18 grid, each square in the grid having a number allocated to it. Notice how the numbers seem to follow a specific pattern, with some numbers going into negative. This grid has the same dimensions as the one we've seen in episode 3, the one where Dual was standing on. Afterwards, we see that certain letters are assigned to a space on the grid. We'll come back to this grid in the second part of the video, the one where we end up analyzing everything in greater detail, in an attempt to piece most of the puzzle together. It's revealed to us that the host of this lottery is a green head floating midair. Once again, I want you to keep in mind the color green, as in this universe it's a general indication of magic. You'll see this color recurring plenty of times whenever magic is involved. The name of the show is revealed along with the slogan Dualotto, some prizes are worth the gamble. Once again, the concept of duality is mentioned. Following next is perhaps one of the most cryptic puzzles in the ARG. 8 sentences are displayed on screen, but they are impossible to understand, at least at first. Notice how the word Roak is mentioned in each sentence. The image of what appears to be a blue dinosaur or a dragon in what appears to be a snowy forest is displayed, with another encrypted message at the bottom. Then what appears to be an intro to Channel 9 appears. I'm going to let this one play out for you to view. The ending of the intro is rather interesting, celebrating over 9,990 years of television. I know I'm starting to sound repetitive, but keep in mind the number 999. It's a rather important and recurring one through the series, and as we've seen so far, numbers seem to hold a great deal of significance within this ARG. The titular show Monsters from Planet Monsterous resumes, and we see the continuations from the previous episode. The 2 kids are chasing a star-shaped monster in the middle of a forest, asking for the monster to come back with them.
So you're just going to abandon Wizard after everything he's done?
The cassette corrupts as usual, cutting us off into the next scene, where we see the 2 kids confronting a variety of monsters, now armed with what appears to be a sword and a hammer. Once again, the video corrupts, but now as it resumes, we are presented with a point of view of the uploader, showing us an interesting detail. The cassette appears to have been tampered with by someone, with one part being cut off and stitched back together, essentially splicing the tape. Whoever did this was clearly attempting to hide something. As to what that could be, your guess is as good as mine. Episode 5 begins with what appears to be the ending of the previous episode of Planet Monsterous. There isn't much to say about this one in particular, except that one part of the tape appears to have been tampered with. The part that was tampered specifically regards the wizard's explanation towards the kids inquiring about what is the biggest problem people have taken to their grave, as he appears to be capable of communicating with ghosts through ceremonies.
Touch with ghosts all the time in your ceremonies. You can channel the wisdom of everyone who's ever lived throughout history. Please tell us, in all the thousands of years that sapiens have existed, what's the problem that the most people have taken to their grave?
If you must know.
It is unknown whether this is simply an audio glitch or the tape was indeed tampered with by someone intent on hiding this explanation.
Boy, I feel super energized now that I have some perspective on things.
Save some of that energy for tomorrow. Your next lesson begins at 7 a.m. sharp.
Oh, really?
The episode ends, and we are presented with the ending credits for this show. You've probably noticed that a lot of odd elements appear in these ending credits. Let's start with the names. You'll notice that a lot of names within the credits appear to be puns related to the person's job within the show. While this might be considered to be simply a humorous collection of jokes, I believe there is a greater reason to that. Names, as you'll see during the series, hold a great amount of importance in this universe. This is just speculation on my part, but it is entirely possible that these people were assigned specific jobs based on their names. Other elements that will strike us odd in the credits are the job themselves: physics unit, biology unit, spheromograph programmer, spheromograph operator, and inhibitor maintenance, and security. Just why so many people were assigned to work in security? Why does that appear to be such an important job in the production of a kids show? There also seemed to be a correlation between the various companies involved in the production of this show: Larval Pictures and the Imago Group. The Imago is the last stage an insect attains during its metamorphosis, so the two seem to be clearly related. A snippet from the following episode is briefly revealed, before the tape once again distorts and cuts off as the video ends. Episode 6 is where some of our questions start receiving answers, but these answers begin raising more questions than before. Right off the bat, before even watching the video itself, a very important element of this ARG is presented to us in a link through the video's description. A few people have asked for better pictures of the box art and labels. For what little good it'll do, so here. This link redirects us to a Google Drive containing 4 images, and while we've been able to observe the box of the video cassette in the very first video, this image is presented in a much higher quality. So, before starting episode 6, let's take a look at these, shall we? The first picture contains the front of the video cassette. There isn't much to go around here, just the 2 main characters of the show flying on board of a plane as they are chased by one of the monsters that we've met in a previous episode. There is a sticker on top right corner of the box displaying a brand logo named World for Kids and the price tag for $17.95. I gotta say, that's quite the price for a malfunctioning video cassette. The second image is perhaps the most interesting one, showcasing the back of the tape's box reading Monsters from Planet Monsterous, 4 more exciting adventures, contains episodes 9 to 12 as seen on TV, along with a description of the plot of the 4 episodes on the tape. Having Your Cake is the first episode from the cassette. Coben, the boy, has been stung by Poisonous, which we can assume to be another monster due to the monsters seemingly following a naming convention of their main characteristic ending in us. The only cure is a crumb from Kakarros, the cake monster. The second episode, A Prisoner No More, revolves around Jayla, the girl accidentally breaking Wizard's wand while trying to use it against Rockerus, unleashing Magicus, the powerful monster within. This is what I was talking about, an answer that only offers more questions. Now, we know what the kids were doing back in episode 4, chasing Magicus in order to bring it back within the Wizard's wand. But this raises 2 new questions. Do all magic wands within this universe contain monsters or spirits within them, acting as the primary source of magic? And the second question, the wizard detailed that people had greater problems before the monster's planet arrived to invade them, indicating this has to be a somewhat recent event, the arrival of the monsters. If it was indeed a recent event, but the monsters originate from the planet Monsterous, how was the wizard able to hold one within its wand prior to that? The only logical answer to this are that either the invasion of the monster isn't an event as recent as it might appear to be, or that the wizard was perhaps capable of entrapping a monster located on the other side of the galaxy, perhaps decades prior to the invasion, maybe even centuries, depending on how old the wand is. Is that the reason why the monsters began invading? Who knows? Any theory at this point is as good as any, really. The next episode, All for a Book, details the plot of the episode that we are about to watch. The kids learn from Wizard that the solution to defeating the monsters may lie in an ancient book, one hidden deep within Waterous' castle. It must be one amazing book, but is the trip worth the danger? The fourth and supposedly final episode on the cassette, The Lost, reads, Imagine, just as you're about to celebrate your 12th birthday, everything becomes chaos. The key to, and the rest is barely readable due to the box being scratched out. I've attempted to reconstruct the rest of the plot, and while I offer no guarantees on the quality of said reconstruction, I think the rest of the episode's description reads like this. The key to freeing Jayla from this nightmare may be what wizard ... incantation. Unfortunately, the rest of the box is too deteriorated to make out accurately, but I believe for the last word to be, ironically enough, believed. The rest of the box reads various details regarding the trademark, copyright, and production of the cassette. Color, PAL. Running time, 120 minutes approximately. Monsters from Planet Monsterous. Larval Pictures, 1996, the Imago Group, and the final and yet interesting piece of information being the copyright proprietor has licensed the picture contained in this videocassette for private home use only and prohibits any other use, including copying, reproduction, or performance in public in whole or in part. Printed and manufactured in the United States of Purgatory, ... distributed by Larval Pictures and the Imago Group. If this videocassette is in need of repairs, please do not hesitate to ... in the largest, prickliest bush you ... and hope for the best. Cryptic at best, but at least we now have a name for the location of where the events of this universe seem to take place in. The United States of Purgatory, or USP for short. The third picture presents no new information, showcasing the side of the box and the cassette, and the fourth and final picture included in the drive includes the cassette itself. The most noticeable element here is once again the handwritten sticker reading Trinity is 81, while the cassette itself reads another legal warning along with an actual warning. Do not remove inhibitor in case of monsters. But this time we see the logo of another company, PDIB. What the PDIB is exactly, we'll come back to that later. For now, let's resume watching the video of episode 6. The video starts off with the two kids, Coben and Jayla, in the castle of Waterous. They have seemingly managed to retrieve the book that the plot described previously, only to be cornered by a group of monsters, including Waterous itself. This book seems to hold a great deal of importance to the monsters as well, as the kids, by threatening to burn the book, manage to escape the monster's grasp, at least momentarily. They begin running through the castle as the monsters start giving chase, only to find themselves once again cornered by taking what is seemingly to be a dead end. The episode is interrupted on a both metaphorical and literal cliffhanger, giving way to the Channel's 9 usual commercial breaks. The first commercial break is for Full Growners, another TV show meant for kids, while the second commercial takes a far more disturbing tone. We see two kids crying as one of them is holding the decapitated head of a brown rabbit, the mascot of Nesquik, as a voice in the background says this.
Nesquik is dead. But not for long.
The next commercial reads a large text, Telethon 2013, as the text below displays information regarding what seems to be like a service or a product meant to allow people to revisit places from within their memories. The next commercial is the one I consider to be the most disturbing so far. I'll let it play out in its entirety, and then we'll discuss it.
Sweet but strong, like a rush will never steer you wrong. If the drums have heard you were glad, like a rush will bring you back from the dead. Like a rush will bring you back from the.
Alright, let's take this slowly. First of all, the commercial advertises what is likely to be an energy drink called Icarus, an energy drink so strong, seemingly capable of even bringing people back from the dead. If colors are also an important part of this ARG, which they seem to be, Icarus is connected to the color green. Remember the Yas Pop commercial? It might be just a coincidence, but the green popsicle is the only one whose ingredient is secret. Is it perhaps made out similarly to how Icarus is made? In Greek mythology, Ichor is the word used to describe the blood of the gods. The name of the drink, along with the logo that clearly resembles an angel bleeding with the slogan "Draw on their power," seems to make it pretty obvious where this energy drink is sourced from. And if it wasn't clear enough, let's rewatch the final part of this commercial again. So, do you see it? I might be just grasping at straws here, but to me, the image in the background heavily resembles a person, or at the very least a humanoid creature, hanging by a ceiling with its hands and feet tied up. I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that whoever or whatever is hanging there might be, if not the direct source, at the very least the primary ingredient of Icarus, a god or an angel whose blood is being harvested to produce an energy drink capable of bringing people back from the dead. Do you see now what I meant when I said that the series only becomes darker and more disturbing with each episode? Hold your horses now, because this only gets worse, as so far we've barely scratched the surface. The next program is a seemingly very short one, titled Let's Hear What the Bumps Have to Say. I'm going to let this one play out as there's little for me to say or add on to. Following next, a short fragment of a program that we've seen before. Once again, various numbers run over the screen on a black and white background, but this time, something's different. What looks similar to a face appears for a moment, and if you think that doesn't look like a face, then yeah, you're right, I didn't think that at first either, but it'll become clearer who or what that face is in the near future. Trust me. For now, just try to keep its shape in mind. Following next, we get another commercial for a Kia car. But wait, did you catch that? Let's rewind a bit. At the very beginning, for perhaps only 1 or 2 frames of the video, another 18 by 18 grid is displayed on screen, only to vanish immediately after. The rest of the commercial also bears some big differences from the other Kia car commercial we've seen previously. For one, halfway through the commercial, this text is briefly displayed, reading, "I hate how they won't let us go outside, but we still have to spar every day." I mean, what's the point of learning self-defense if we'll stay locked away from danger forever? I know it's for our own safety, but I want to see the moons, and Utopia, and the ocean with my own eyes, and maybe even the Vinebirds zone will be an interesting place to visit. The rest of the commercial seems to proceed in a seemingly normal way until this happens. The tape once again corrupts and cuts off, and the video ends, but not before this happens. It's worthy to note that the cryptic message that was just displayed on screen wasn't from the tape itself, rather from the videocassette reader, something that normally shouldn't be possible for a tape to alter a VCR's machine internal software to display something different. Even the uploader seems to be confused at this event, as the description of the video reads, "The final ad shocked me too. As for what happened next, that has to be an issue with my VCR, because the tape couldn't have made the player to do something like that. Obviously this player was made in some foreign country, but I'm not sure what language that is. My only valid theory for everything else is that this tape is some kind of indie art project made for stoners." Which honestly sounds like a pretty solid theory to me. There is no ARG, and there never was. Just a tape created by some art students in order to gawk at while indulging in the devil's lettuce in their parents' basement. Case solved, we can all move on with our lives. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace and blaze it for 20. And yet, we all know this isn't the answer. There is definitely more hidden within this. There has to be. Because the more we dig, the more we find out. And we'll soon start reaching the point where we'll wish we hadn't found out more. Episode 7 of Monsters from Planet Monsterous is where things start taking an even weirder turn, if you even believe for that to be possible at this point. The video begins in the middle of what we can assume to be the last episode of the cartoon, with Jayla stuck inside an odd purple forest. Someone or something appears to be stalking her, but just before we reveal to who or what that is, the episode cuts off, and with the tape continuing to display its usual Channel 9 commercials and programs. The first one is, well, it's something, I can say this much. A green-haired angel figure is observed pointing towards a fire as a text reading, "These jokes make no sense," is displayed above. There are further texts being displayed in the background, but due to the quality of the video they are pretty much illegible. With the risk of being repetitive, I'm going to say that we'll get back to this particular snippet in the second part of the video, the one where we're going to go over everything once again, in an attempt to solve various puzzles and connect various dots. But I'm going to say this now. This particular snippet leads to what is perhaps the most disturbing and darker rabbit hole in the entire series. Following next is a commercial for, well, I'm not sure what exactly. I think a vacation spot, really. I'm going to let it play out and you can decide. Once again, we get a rewatch of our favorite camel smoking camel, Boris, advertising Boris's haberdashery. This commercial is practically identical, at least from what I noticed, to the first one we've seen, with the only difference being that at the very end, after a rather uncomfortable pause, Boris is seen turning towards the camera and whispering something. In regards to what exactly is he whispering, your guess is as good as mine. The next snippet shows a text reading "Paracosm" before displaying what seems to look like a map of sorts. The map appears to be a political one, offering the viewer information regarding the various territories of this continent along with a brief description of the creatures inhabiting them. We have the scaly boys, the scaly with wings, which I assume are just dragons. We got the slithery folks, the pointy ears, and various other ones, along with what I assume to be troll territory. The map is quickly destroyed by a green bowling ball, and a short text appears on screen reading, "Through division came peace, but peace is transient. In pursuit of lasting peace, the wielders of Crossword Plus will bring war." Once again, we are being warned in relation to the power that the bearers of the Crossword Plus symbol bear, and their potential for mass destruction. We still don't know much regarding Crossword Plus, but whatever it is, it cannot be good. It is worth mentioning that the word paracosm is defined by a prolonged fantasy world invented by children. Whether the map we've seen is in fact just a paracosm, a world made up by some children, an existent place in a parallel universe, or the entirety of the United States of Purgatory is, at least for now, unclear. The next program is a public service announcement from Channel 9 titled "Your Thoughts Aren't as Private as You Might Think." And I gotta say, just the concept of this sentence is in itself already pretty terrifying to think about. The PSA starts delivering information regarding the existence of special particles being located everywhere. I believe that the special particles in question are the ones that we've received exposition on in episode 3 in the program What's in the Cards, where the cards reveal the existence of magic being everywhere and sharing its name with the glass from our world that I've mentioned previously, Trinitite. So for now, we'll refer to these special particles as Trinitite. According to the PSA, Trinitite particles are present seemingly everywhere, and they are capable of reading people's thoughts and remembering them for thousands of years, although with a questionable amount of accuracy. The PSA ends there as the video corrupts and the 12th episode of Monsters from Planet Monsterous from the beginning resumes. We see Jayla once again trapped in the same purple forest location from before, as the identity of the being stalking her previously is revealed as herself. Now, I want you to pay attention to this moment in particular. The other Jayla tells the first Jayla that she should pause in order to think, or fast forward up to the moment where she finds her friends. The first Jayla responds,
You make it sound like I'm a character on TV. How can you be sure you're not? If you're certain that someone who looks exactly like you is fictional, shouldn't it also be easy to believe that someone who looks exactly like them is make-believe too?
When I first watched this episode, that part managed to draw a chuckle out of me. Yeah, I'm pretty easily amused, but I didn't find anything odd or strange in that scene. Just the author providing perhaps a fourth wall breaking joke or a meta commentary. But now that I've had more time, right at the moment when I was writing the script of this video, a small idea popped. What if that wasn't a joke? What if, and bear with me for a second, the characters within the series, Jayla, Coben, and the Wizard, along with the monsters, are actually alive, believing themselves and the world surrounding them to be real, with the episodes not following a pre-written script, rather with the production team simply bringing the characters to life through some unknown method and simply recording their reactions to the situations they're being put into. I mean, sure, this sounds like a schizo theory if anything, but somehow I think it would explain the physics team and the biology team, along with the other odd roles involved in the credits of the show. Is this what happened to Boris the Camel as well? Did he, after finishing his little commercial, said something to the cameraman, such as, "Alright, we are done here," or "Can't wait to get home," or anything along those lines as he displayed a moment of proper sentience? Are all the characters, creatures, and beings recorded in these commercials and programs actual living beings, created and recorded for the amusement of the masses? Well, probably not. But it's definitely something worth considering. After all, who knows how the production of a TV show works in another reality, whose rules of existence differ from ours, right? Snippet 4 starts with the end of the commercial for Techno Wars and continues with another short program called What's in a Name? According to this program, names are very important, as their numerological value related to the chart we're briefly shown can impact the future of a child's life. Kids with an insignificant number are apparently useless, unworthy of being born in the first place. All children whose letters from their names add up to a significant number have their future pretty much set for them, as they will grow to be very successful in the long run. We are shown a list of other potentially great names for kids, and I gotta say, some of these are, well, they are certainly something for sure. Fnob. Yeah, I think I would vote for Nah, I'm not saying that name again. Yeah, I think I would vote for that guy as president of the USP for sure, but I gotta say, Von Satan Binder Satan off definitely comes as a close second. The next commercial is for Doors. Yep, literally that. Doors. If anything, this commercial reminds me of the real Fake Doors commercial from Rick and Morty's interdimensional television. Anyway, let's zoom in on the face of this character, which we are going to refer to as the Jester. Reminds you of anything? That's right. We've seen this face before, in another program. Apparently, the Jester seems to be a recurrent, if not important character in this story, but we'll go over that in greater detail later on. And yes, I know that by this point you are tired of hearing me say this, but bear with me. If I were to start showing you everything from now, before going over every video first, everything will make even less sense than it already does. So just bear a little bit more patience. After the Doors commercial, we get another episode of What's in the Cards Today. The first card reveals to us that our calendar is not the same as theirs, and that they have a different name for what we call 2021, indicating that the cards, or at the very least the producers of this show, are somewhat aware of our mirror reality, once again also revealing that the cards can both predict the future and narrate the past, but we don't know which are which. This card is quite quizzical. We're presented with a few elements that we're already familiar of within the series, such as Crossword and Crossword Plus. I believe the green the card is referring to might be indicative of magic, or perhaps Ichor, while the concept of turning into a face might be a reference to the board game Faces of Terror, which might be based on real characters or events. We're also exposed to the concept of metamorphosis, which has now become a recurrent theme, with the larval pictures and the Imago group presenting it as well. This card in particular details something from the Monsterous show, reading that the animators put Iota's drawings up on Wizard's wall so he'd get to see his pictures appear on TV before the toxicosis took him. The fever dreams of his sickness inspired those pictures. So now we know of an additional character called Iota, also the name of a letter from the Greek alphabet that succumbed to something called toxicosis. Judging by the drawings being present on Wizard's wall, we can assume that this is a card narrating past events rather than future ones. It is revealed to us in the following card that Iota was doomed to die because they gave him his crossword seed too late after birth. We've already been mentioned the concept of children having seeds within them in a past program, so what we can assume to be the truth so far is that shortly after being born, children are given a seed under the form of a crossword symbol, which they can use to draw magical power from. Inscribe this symbol too late, and the child will become affected with toxicosis and eventually succumb. We are now presented with another character called Theta, which, according to the cards, received her crossword symbol in the womb, unlike other children who receive it within a year after their birth. This is not the first time Theta is mentioned in the series. In fact, if you recall, we've seen the symbol Theta reflected in Boris's sunglasses before, although the significance of this is still unknown. According to the cards, Theta is being captive somewhere and being possibly tortured, perhaps due to the fact that she had her crossword symbol or seed implanted within her before being born, giving her access to some special abilities. It is entirely possible that Theta was taken away and locked somewhere and is now being experimented upon as someone might be trying to find out just what the potential or the limits are for someone whose crossword symbol was given before birth rather than afterwards. I don't think that it is required for me to say that the implications beyond this are disturbing, to say the least. The tape once again corrupts, and we resume at what seems to be the ending of the 12th episode of Monsters from Planet Monsterous. Coben has managed to find Jayla, and before leaving, the other Jayla hands the quote-unquote original one a red envelope, telling her to give it to a good person when no one is watching, hoping that the contents of that envelope could be potentially enough to save the world. I know it's a wild assumption to make, but by going back to my previous theory, where I stated that I believe for these characters to be in fact fully sentient and not just animated pieces of dough or carton on stop motion, I believe Jayla has been exposed to the truth by the other Jayla, with the envelope containing information regarding how to possibly escape their situation or put an end to their existence of being used as puppets for entertainment. Don't take anything that I'm saying as an absolute truth. This is currently just a personal theory of mine. And with that, episode 7 ends. Episode 8 is where the series begins approaching its climax, with the video description reading, "Looks like there is enough tape left on the reel for maybe 5 or 10 more minutes of clean footage, judging from how much I've found so far. I doubt what I will find will answer all my questions. I just hope I know where to look for answers after that." This might be an indication from the creator that we are now nearing the end of this series, but given that these episodes were uploaded over the span of 4 years, with the last episode, episode 9, being uploaded only a month ago, there could be possibly more to come in the future. The episode begins with a snippet, starting off with what we can assume to be the ending credits of the last episode we've seen of Monsters from Planet Monsterous, the 12th one. Judging by the number of episodes listed on the back of the box, this should be theoretically the final one, and none should follow afterwards. As the credits finish playing out, an intro to Channel 9 begins, where we can recognize a variety of programs that we've seen already, along with others that so far we had no chance of properly witnessing. The monster that we can only assume to be Toxicus appears, urging us to keep watching, as there will be, and I quote, "more fun ads coming right up." The first ad is for a musical album named The Quackapella Choir, where a variety of black and white ducks along with a singular brown duck are seen allegedly singing on screen. The second ad is somewhat lacking in terms of secret meanings or encrypted messages. What I found interesting about this particular ad is that, despite showing a mutated person killing two aggressors in cold blood through the use of a sharp tentacle and magically summoned bombs, the ad still seems to be aimed at a public of children, as indicated by the sentence, "talk to the nearest adult." The concept of dormant post-human abilities is also mentioned. The following program is once again Let's Hear What the Bumps Have to Say, and we're offered another short snippet of trivia. Soon, each kid watching at home will learn to manifest a bow, plus the melee weapon they become most comfortable with in training. I found this sentence particularly revealing in terms of universe building. I'm going to take a wild assumption here. Remember episode 4 of this series? The kids are seen chasing Magicus through a forest, completely unarmed. Afterwards, as the tape cuts into the next scene, we see both children fighting a group of monsters using a hammer and a sword, which have seemingly appeared out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure this is related to what the bump said in regard to the kids learning how to manifest a bow plus the melee weapon they became most comfortable with in training, indicating that both Coben and Jayla are not only following a particular kind of training under the wizard's tutoring, I assume, but are also capable of using magic to a certain degree, at least enough to materialize into reality both a hammer and a sword. The next program's protagonist is a living, sentient flame going by the name of Flameboy. He urges the public watching to start fires together, teaching the spectators how to draw a burn glyph, capable of igniting on spot by following a set of instructions on the same recurrent 18x18 grid that we've now seen so many times. It appears that this grid holds not only a seemingly religious importance to the inhabitants of this universe, but also a way to manifest magical phenomena at will by carefully following set instructions and drawing symbols matching the values of the grid. A final message from Flameboy reads, "Once your seed has bloomed, you'll be able to pluck this glyph and others from a ring of glyphs rotating above your head," indicating once again the importance that this seeding process holds to the inhabitants of this universe, allowing them to harness the power of various magical glyphs once fully matured. The second snippet is a direct continuation on the documentary regarding Trinitite particles from episode 7. It is explained to us that everything that ever happens remains etched within the memory of these particles for thousands of years, and their ability to cross-reference people's thoughts allow them to seemingly predict the future. We are also informed that a group of Trinitite particles can act person-like, which would explain who or what green dust in the air, the giant green floating head from Dualist is. The program continues with another interesting detail, informing us that in order to read the thoughts within the particles, special equipment is required, indicated by a green robot called Mr. Sphero. I think the official name for this special equipment was indicated to us at the end of episode 5 of the series during the credits. It's a spheromograph. This once again raises another additional question. Why is a spheromograph, a device seemingly capable of reading into Trinitite particles to extract thoughts etched by the memories of other people, required in the development of a children's TV show? The next program begins with another lecture by Dual, this time with a disclaimer showcased on top of the screen. The values for X, -X and -G do not appear on the Dualist Grid, as the matrix is limited to the numbers ranging from -106 to 217. Some of you might have already understood the meaning of those words, but if you haven't, don't worry, we'll go over this later on. Towards the end of the program, Dual appears to be rather distraught, and as we see him looking over his shoulders a couple of times, he suddenly grabs the camera and begins revealing us what appears to be confidential information. We can see the Jester's face appearing behind Dual, as someone attempts silencing him by shooting a syringe containing an unknown liquid into his neck. What is perhaps the most infuriating part of this ARG so far happens right at the end of the program. The sword cross symbol appears, and just as its name is about to be revealed to us, the program cuts out. Shortly after, a barely visible message is seen on screen, indicated by a yellow warning mark reading "Limiter Degradation Notice." I'm going to assume that the limiter is a device preventing or limiting the characters from these shows to act in certain ways, and its degradation is what allowed Dual to briefly go off script before being silenced. The next program is a commercial for a video game called Captain Chromebones in Treasure Defense, presenting a presumably robotic, due to the name being Chromebones, pirate skeleton. The gameplay is rather simple. Through a combination of tower defense elements thrown in a real-time match of bell ships, the players must input a set of coordinates, which will result in a singular cannonball being shot on a grid, in an attempt to defeat the drones before they can reach the treasure. The players can also use magic instead of cannonballs, which will result in an AoE projectile that will hit everything in a 5x5 area, although this comes with a cost. Making use of magic will increase the corruption meter, which will only decrease slowly over time. Notice how magic in question is represented by a wave of green hands. Seems familiar? Well, of course, we've seen those hands before. They're the same type of magic used by one of the robots from Techno Wars. If too much magic is used, allowing the corruption bar to fill up, the game pauses, and the player must complete a minigame in order to subdue the corruption, or losing their body and mind. We can see a group of faces forming in the green background, and the commercial ends. but not without a hidden message displayed right before the end of the minigame, reading, "You should have never taken her Icarus into your bloodstream." As we've seen already, Icarus is a green-colored energy drink, capable of empowering and bringing people back from the dead, currently harvested from some godlike being. This sentence confirms that the being is female in origin, and her blood, or Icarus, is the one being harvested. Wild assumption here, but is this perhaps referring to Theta, the child that had the crossword symbol implanted into her in the womb, which resulted in her becoming far stronger than everyone else? The cards did mention that she is being held captive and tortured, so my own personal theory, based on our findings so far, is that Theta received her crossword symbol in the womb, unlike other children who receive it after being born. As a result of that, Theta was born with godlike abilities or features, and now not only her blood is being constantly harvested and sold as an energy drink, but other of her abilities might be exploited in the production of various shows and commercials, as we've seen the Theta symbol displayed over a computer screen in the reflection of Boris's sunglasses before. Perhaps I might be grasping at straws here, and yet something tells me that the reality is not too far from this theory, and if you thought this was disturbing, don't worry, there is far worse in store for us. The next program begins with a newspaper snippet from the 28th of November 1953, advertising the opening of an amusement park themed around the cartoon bee Buzzy Bumble. Shortly afterwards, another program begins, detailing the destruction of Buzzy Bumble's theme park by a sudden sprout of colossal bramble vines, engulfing the entire park only a few years after the park's opening. The vines have apparently managed to destroy the entire place, and we are left with the image of the theme park destroyed and overrun by spiky vines and giant thorns. Perhaps this image will strike you as familiar, and if it does, you won't be wrong. We've seen this exact scene in a drawing attached to Wizard's Wall. We know that the one who made the drawing was a child named Iota during his toxicosis-caused fever, meaning he couldn't have witnessed the event firsthand. After the inevitable demise of the fun park, a place that probably became known as the Vineburst Zone later on, the tape begins going through its worst corruption so far, as various scenes of programs are jumbled together in an uncoordinated mess, only to reveal the following message. The following video, Monsters from Planet Monsterous, Episode 9, has been uploaded on the 21st of December 2024. The description details that this is the end of the tape, indicating that the series might have reached its end. But the final words from the uploader, reading, "I'm not sure where to look for answers after this upload. Well, I do have one idea, but I feel silly even considering it," indicates that perhaps there is still more to come. But given how irregular the uploads were, with the 8th episode being released 1 year ago, the 7th 2 years ago, and the 6th 3 years ago, we can only speculate that it will perhaps take another entire year for the series to continue. Nevertheless, we are going to take a look at what is currently the final episode of this ARG. The episode begins with another snippet. But wait, it's an episode of Monsters from Planet Monsterous. Theoretically, the last episode should have been, well, the last, as the cassette should have supposedly only stored 4 episodes in total. This episode also seems off. The characters of the show aren't really speaking or moving at all, simply standing still as a jingle plays in the background. This continues for the first 3 minutes of the video, and we can only assume that perhaps the reason for this unusual behavior to be directly correlated with the red envelope that Jayla received in the previous episode. Did the envelope contain instructions for the characters' souls to escape the show, rendering their bodies nothing more than empty husks? Yeah, perhaps this is a little too far-fetched. I'm just pulling at straws here at this point. The next show is an episode from Techno Wars, where a rather dramatic scene begins playing out.
For the sake of all the races and all the nations, I need to take this one life.
As the scene ends in a dramatic cliffhanger, the usual intro for Channel 9 plays, except this time something's a little different. Wait, have we seen that symbol before? At first glance, it does look pretty similar to the symbol that the kid from the Nesquik is Dead commercial had on his hat. Either way, some dark entity seems to have managed to take over Channel 9, and things seem to take a turn for the worse, as we see the donkey from Aspop being chased by someone. A new program, one we haven't seen before, begins playing, Music of the Spheres, as a catchy tune plays in the background, along with various faceless characters dancing to the beat. A string of mysterious sentences appear. Are these part of the show, or is someone attempting to tell us something? The next program is another episode of What's in a Name, and if you're expecting more ridiculous names, you're absolutely right. And sure, it's all jokes and fun, until... Well, at least now we know something else. Theda has another real name. What that name might be is for now a mystery, but it's probably a key component to this whole series. Following next, a commercial for animal-shaped biscuits, which starts taking a more disturbing turn with each moment. Afterwards, we get another commercial for Boris's haberdashery, but as the rest of the commercials and programs this episode, everything goes wrong, as Boris is assaulted by the dark entity, which seems to have managed taking over Channel 9. The following sequence is, well, possibly the weirdest one so far. I'll simply let this one play out in its entirety. The next program is Let's Hear What the Bumps Have to Say, and we're shown an encrypted message before seeing the Bumps being assaulted by the same dark entity from before. But this time, we get a somehow clearer view of it. I could be mistaken, but from this side, the entity kind of resembles the Jester that we've seen before. Has the Jester managed to somehow escape? Is he rampaging throughout the various programs of Channel 9? It sure seems for that to be the case, as we see more and more of these now familiar programs being interrupted by this entity's rampage. What's in the cards today displays a cryptic message for the spectators. The strike, which split your world into the pieces you're all familiar with today, also filled it with the particles that contain our world. I'm actually unsure what this could be about. I have a few theories, but they are not supported by any evidence, so for now I'm going to refrain from presenting them, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions as to this and the next card's meaning. With this, Channel 9 announces the end of its segment dedicated to children, displaying a message urging for the kids to go sleep, as perhaps what is the most informative and revealing show begins, detailing part of this world's history and revealing a lot in terms of lore.
Long ago, when the world was ravaged by war and famine, there existed a secret guild of mages. The soothsayers of this guild stared into the chaos permeating the atmosphere in order to divine details about the future, and through their prophecies sought to alter the course of history for the benefit of all mankind. The mages fostered children orphaned by war and imbued them with the power of this chaos to create a breed of young soldiers, warriors capable of great inhuman feats. These children, known as the Blanched Guard, carried out the guild's commands in a never-ending quest to lead the land into an age of prosperity. However, when the ruling class caught wind of what the guild was doing, they plotted to stop them at any cost. For this bright future the guild strove towards for the sake of many would rob the elite of their own power and wealth. And so a secret war was waged, with the soldiers and assassins of the elite targeting the mages and their chosen children for eradication. Several smaller armed clans and networks of common folk, such as the Blue Sickle and the People's Whisper, assisted the guild in their bid to survive. But all their efforts could only delay the inevitable. While attempting to flee across the ever-expanding sea, the remnants of the guild engaged their enemy one last time. It was here that the mages, the Blanched Guard, and all their secrets were lost. Centuries later, the guild's arcane knowledge was discovered by another organization. These men of science deconstructed the magic of the Blanched Guard to create what they deemed an improvement, a living weapon intended to serve their own ambitions. By experimenting on this weapon, they were able to create new and more powerful abominations, with the goal of combining their creations into one ultimate being. You men of science may watch this tape and hear my voice, but you will never comprehend the scope of what you have unleashed on the world.
Well, there is definitely a lot to unpack here. First of all, the idea of wizards imbuing orphans with power in order to carry out their orders seems already rather familiar to me. Could this be the case for Coben and Jayla as well? When you think about it, we never see their parents across the show, or any indication that they could be going to school or live anywhere else other than the wizard's house. After the organization supposedly lost the war against the elite, their magic was forgotten, only to be rediscovered later on by a group of scientists, managing to perfect it and replicate it by combining science with magic and obtaining the crossword symbol. The scientists were capable of creating new and powerful abominations, which we can assume to be the Faces of Terror, as we're shown a crab-like creature being combined with the crossword symbol, which likely resulted into what we've seen before during the Faces of Terror program, where we're shown what one of the Faces of Terror, specifically the crab, really looks like. Likely a post-human, resulted from the merging of the crossword symbol along with the use of the Phantom system in order to gain access to new and extraordinary powers, creating what is supposedly to be the one ultimate being. As the screen turns black for a few seconds, indicating the ending of this episode, one last final commercial plays.
In one block has consequences. Your flesh will melt because of their divine sin. Children will fight children. Jesters will have kings, and the fly trap will eat you all. You're all fucked now. You're all fucked now. You're all fucked now. You're all fucked
And with this, the video ends. We have now managed to go over the entirety of the channel VHS Tapes of Olde. With every video uploaded to its current date, we've essentially explored the main aspects of this ARG. It will be a lie to say that we've seen everything, because, in fact, there is still something more to this. But before proceeding with the second part of this video, where we will explore further into the series, uncovering new materials, videos, and hidden elements, I would like to say a few words. First of all, I want to express my feelings towards this series. Monsters from Planet Monsterous is a fantastic, criminally underrated ARG. The level of effort that was put in the creation of this series far outweighs the effort put into many other popular series. I would almost dare to say that, in sheer terms of production value and detailing, this might be to date one of the best series of this kind on YouTube, which makes me wonder just how many other amazing series have managed to fly under the radar. Secondly, I want to say just how big of an effort this whole video was. I've been writing this script, analyzing that show, editing and doing most of the stuff by myself, as I am not yet at a YouTuber level where I can afford my own editor to help me out with the majority of this stuff. So, if you found this video any interesting by now, it would help me a great deal if you liked it, subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends, just to give it a small kickstart in the algorithm. Lastly, there is a number of people that I would like to thank and give proper credits to, which without them this whole video couldn't have been possible. The first I want to thank is VHS Tapes of Olde channel for creating this fantastic series. Seriously, I don't know who you are, but if you're watching this video, you've done amazing work, and I hope that the low amount of recognition you've received for it hasn't managed to demoralize you. I urge you to continue creating awesome content, and all the best in the future projects and endeavors. The second person I would like to thank and credit is Icemaster. Icemaster has been analyzing this series for far longer than I have. He has managed to bring to light many amazing findings, and I've been able to compare many of my own findings with his, only to find out he had solved the majority of this series long before I did. Huge kudos to Icemaster, which allowed me to not only compare and confirm some correct assumptions and solutions, but also correct some mistakes with his videos. I recommend you check out his channel. I also note that many of Icemaster's own findings were possible only with the help of a Discord server dedicated to the analysis of this ARG. While I haven't joined the Discord myself, Icemaster credited said server multiple times for its effort, and I would like to do the same. The third person I would like to credit for some important findings is Jeff, the owner of the Jeffio channel. Him and his friend Dave made a short analysis on this series, and as short as it might have been, they have managed to figure out some pretty interesting things that completely eluded me and many others. We'll discuss about these findings later on in the video. Make sure to check out Jeffio's channel as well. The videos are pretty good, and if you enjoyed this video, chances are you'll probably enjoy his videos as well. Afterwards, I would like to thank one of my friends for helping me through the analysis of this ARG. He helped me a great deal by pointing out certain details that had initially eluded me. I would also like to point out that his help was much required in the solving of a complicated mathematical puzzle in this series, and by finding a hidden JPEG image in another puzzle later on. Huge kudos. I asked him whether he would have liked to be directly credited or not, and his response was, whatever you think is funniest. So I'm going to instead credit his favorite fictional character ever, Makima from Chainsaw Man. Lastly, but not least, I would like to thank my own subscribers for being patient during the release of this project. You, along with this channel's members, have offered me nothing but support during these weeks. I thank you for your patience, and I hope this video did not disappoint and was worth the wait. And with this being said, let's begin with the second part of this video, piecing the puzzle together along with new elements of this ARG that have not been presented in the first part of the video. The first and most important element I want to go over right off the bat is the grid. The grid appears in the commercial for the Gematrix show, which stands for the Gematrix system. In numerology, gematria is the practice of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase by reading it as a number, or sometimes by using an alphanumerical cipher. If this sounds familiar, it's because it is. Across this ARG, we've seen multiple instances of names or words being assigned numbers based on their sum of each letter's corresponding values. The grid is also a recurrent element within this ARG. By this point, we've seen it more times than we can count, and the clearest and most complete version of the grid is shown during the Dualist show. What we have here is essentially a magic square. By definition in mathematics, a magic square is a square array of numbers, where the sum of the numbers in each row, column, and diagonals is always the same. Think of it like Sudoku. This grid is essentially the same, an 18 by 18 magic square, where the sum of each row, column, and diagonal equals to 999. Why 999 specifically? Well, the number 9 obviously holds a great deal of importance within this universe, and it's referenced plenty of times. The 9 holy points, theta having a value of 9 in Greek numerals, iota, which despite having a value of 10, it's the 9th letter of the Greek alphabet, Channel 9, also celebrating 9,990 years of television. Trinity is 81, with 81 being the result of 9 times 9. And, funnily enough, the content of the tape from this ARG being uploaded in 9 tapes. While the ARG might continue with other episodes, the uploader has clearly stated that with the 9th episode, the content from the tape was exhausted, and that now he will have to look for answers elsewhere. So, what's the deal with the number 9? Well, quite a lot in fact. Now, I'm unsure if any of the following have any relevance to the series whatsoever, but we'll shortly go over the variety of meanings the number 9 can have. In mathematics, 9 is the only number multiplied by any other single-digit number, resulting in a number whose digits add up to 9. For example, 9 times 2 is 18, and the resulting digits, when summed up, 1 plus 8, equal to 9. 9 times 3 equals to 27, and 2 plus 7 is 9. In Greek mythology, the 9 muses were the goddesses of inspiration in arts and science. The gestation period of humans is of 9 months, and so on. There is plenty in terms of scientific, historic, and spiritual significance that relate to the number 9. Are any of these connected to our ARG here? Unlikely. What holds true though is that the importance of the number 9 is taken quite to the extreme. Now, let's go back to our grid, which we will be referring to as the Dualist Grid. We've already established that the Dualist Grid is essentially a magic square and that each row and column holds a result of 999. Unfortunately, Duolotto is the only instance where the grid is shown in such a great deal of accuracy, rendering the rest of the numbers unknowable. Or are they? I'm going to start with the following premise. If you are good at math, then you don't need anything else other than this singular image to fill out the rest of the grid. I'm saying this because I've seen someone actually do it. But in case you need more clues and further help, well, there is plenty of clues throughout the series to help you with that. One of the most important ones is the Dualist Grid of ducks shown in the Quackapella choir. By overlaying the ducks from the Quackapella choir over the grid, we'll notice a rather important detail. The white ducks all overlay with positive numbers, while the black ducks overlay with negative ones. By using this, we can already tell which squares are supposed to hold a negative and positive value respectively. Oh, and we're also able to tell where the number 0 is, given that there is a singular brown duck in the mix, a duck that essentially doesn't stand for a positive number, but not for a negative one either. The second most important clue that will help us solve this grid is going to be the commercial for the video game of Captain Chromebones. If you remember, the whole gameplay of Captain Chromebones revolved around the idea of shooting drones by inputting a series of values as coordinates. Unsurprisingly, and as already many of you have probably figured out already, the coordinates match the same numbers on the grid. If we overlay the grid over the game of Captain Chromebones, then we can cross-reference the location of where the cannon attacks land based on the coordinates input by the player, in order to add a few additional values to the grid. So, after combining these two pieces, the duck grid and the pirate video game grid, this is the result. We now have far more information that can help us solve the rest of the Dualist grid by following the criteria I will now list. Each row, column, and the two diagonals must have a final result of 999. Each value in the grid is unique and cannot repeat itself across another space. This is not specifically stated anywhere, but so far we haven't encountered a singular instance of numbers repeating, and this is also a general rule when referring to a magic square. If values could repeat, the possible solutions for this grid will increase exponentially, making it essentially impossible to solve. The red squares must hold negative numbers, the others must hold positive numbers. And as we've been revealed in the 8th episode of this series, during the Gematsis show, the maximum value appearing on the grid is 217, while the minimum value is minus 106. Any number above or below cannot appear on the grid. So, how do we go on solving the Dualist grid? The answer is, however you prefer, really. You could make use of an online tool specifically developed for the very purpose of solving magic squares, or you could ask a friend of yours who is really good at math to just slap down the entire thing in an Excel spreadsheet and solve it. You could brute force the entire grid through the use of a Python script, attempting every combination until it will return a result matching every criteria above. Or you could pay $30 to a random stranger on Fiverr to do it for you. Either way, the final result should look something like this. Now, before proceeding, I'm sure many of you will have noticed by this point that the Dualist grid seems to follow a certain pattern. Horizontally, numbers seem to increase by 10 every other space, like here. 67, minus 14, 77, minus 4, 87, 6, 97, 16, 107, 26, 117, 36, 127. While vertically, the numbers increase by 11 every other space, minus 70, 11, minus 59, 22, minus 48, 33, minus 37, 44. Diagonally, the numbers increase by 1 every other number, 17, 180, 18, 181, 19. But this pattern isn't a continuous one. It is interrupted at times. Why is that? Well, the first and most obvious answer is that since the numbers are not allowed to repeat themselves, the pattern will interrupt whenever it be required to make use of a number that's been already used within the grid. But honestly, I think that the pattern is not an intentional one. Rather, it's the result of the magic square. With such a large amount of numbers that have to follow such a strict criteria when placed on the grid, I think that the formation of what would at first appear to be intentional patterns is inevitable. So personally, I wouldn't dwell on it too much. Just a thing that I thought was worth mentioning and keeping in mind. Okay, cool. We got every value on the Dualist grid. Now what? Well, this was just the first half of the puzzle. The second half is the gematria system. As we've already determined, each letter in the alphabet corresponds to a positive and negative value on the grid, excepting for X, and minus G, as their numerical values are higher or lower than the numbers present on the grid. We can find out the majority of the assigned values for each letter both through the Dual Lotto show, which as you can see reveals the position of a few letters on the grid and thus their value, and other values can be determined from the A equals A commercial, where solving the various mathematical equations will reveal further values. We also get a couple of freebies in the background of the Gematsis commercial, but we get most of the values from the show What's in a Name, where you can see the letters being displayed clearly. The commercial for the burn glyph can also be used to tell the values and positions on the grid for the letters B, U, R, and N. The 4 points of the burn glyph will indeed spell out burn if we compare the letters from the grid with their numerical value. This doesn't tell us anything new really, except giving us a little bit of insight on how glyph and magic works in this universe, once again highlighting the importance of the Dualist Grid and the Gematria system for the inhabitants of this world and how it can be applied to make use of magic. Another way to figure out some values is through the Quackapella choir. In this frame, we can observe that when the ducks say "we", 2 ducks open their mouth. If a line on the grid, they stand for 71 and -71. We've already established how words in the Gematria system are assigned a value based on the sum of each individual letter. And if the letter E equals 1, then we can subtract that 1 from 71 and obtain 70, the result for W. This method could be applied to the rest of the words. The way this works is that the more values you find, the easier it becomes to find the next ones. For example, if you have every value except the one for X, finding X is doable through the Gematsis commercial. Here, the sentence "see what the text reveals" is shown to have a value of 555. If we know the value of every other letter excepting X, then we can just make a sum of every letter, excepting X of course, which will give us the result of 255. With only X being the missing value, we can subtract 255 from 555 and obtain a result of 300, thus determining the value of X. A letter I've been having trouble finding the value for is the letter G. I've rewatched the entire series about 25 times now, and I still haven't managed to find any clues towards the letter G, except the following. The values for X, -X and -G do not appear on the Dualist Grid, as the matrix is limited to the numbers ranging from -106 to 217. The letters on the grid share their positive and negative values. For example, as we can see on the Dual Auto program, I has both a value of 2 and -2. This is something that applies to the rest of the letters as well, something seen in the Quackapella choir. So, the value for -G doesn't appear on the Dualist Grid, but the value for G does, meaning that G must have a value from 106 to 217. Which one exactly? Honestly, I'm not sure, but I could make a reasonable guess. Remember how I mentioned that the grid seems to follow a specific pattern? Judging by the fact that the letters are also found on the grid, it wouldn't be wrong to assume that a pattern will form with them as well. An assumption that will prove right, because by arranging the values of the letters from lowest to highest, we will notice this pattern. They either go up by 1, 10, or 11. Since X holds a value of 300, I'm assuming there must be values for 100 and 200 as well. It would only make sense, pattern-wise. According to this order, 50, 100, and 200 should have a letter assigned to these values. If G can only be a number ranging from 106 to 217, then 200 is the only available solution. Again, this is assuming that the values and the letters do follow this logic. If they don't, then this entire argument falls apart. But currently it's the best guess I have. Even with the values of some letters missing, the ones we currently have will be enough to solve a few puzzles in the series, starting with Frode Hopman's Adventure. A commercial towards a video game, Frode Hopman's Adventure clearly hides something more beneath. I mean, come on. The commercial literally contains the phrase, "discovering secret passwords." Now, the thing is, the inhabitants of the universe where these commercials come from employ the Dualist Grid and the Gematria system in practically everything. We've seen the grid used in Captain Chromebones, and it's just as relevant in Frode Hopman's. If we start counting each lily pad shown on screen and where Frode lands, we'll get the following. 9, 3, 37, 1, 8, 20, 1, 8. By employing the Gematria system, we can translate the following numbers into this. Save teeth, which I suppose wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume for the next letter to be A, forming the sentence save Theta, which, as we currently know, is being held captive and tortured somewhere. The next message that makes use of the Gematria system is Trinity is 81. If you remember, that's the text that was presented on a sticker on the top left of the tape. What's there to say about this? Well, nothing much, other than the fact that Trinity is indeed 81. By applying the Gematria system, the value of Trinity is indeed 81, potentially useful to find out the missing value of one of the letters. Another element in the series that employs the use of the grid and the Gematria system is the logo of the Kia commercial. By overlapping the grid over the logo, we can see that it aligns with its points, spelling out the word Kia. The next puzzle that employs the use of the Gematria system in order to be solved is contained within the Doors commercial. If you've paid attention the first time seeing this commercial, something might have struck you as odd. Almost every door from the commercial has a number written on it. Green door, 9. Orange door, 8, which stands for 8 in Spanish. Cream door, Niju, which is 20 in Japanese. Light blue door, 2. White door, 8. Unfortunately, the black door doesn't bear any number, and if it does, the quality of the video makes it simply illegible, while the dark blue door has something written in Arabic, which, if I'm not mistaken, should read, "What's wrong?" Perhaps someone who knows Arabic can confirm or deny this in the comments. The rest of the doors are pretty obvious. We got a 1, a 6, a 37, a 40, and a 48. Noticed how every door so far had a different color. At the very end of the commercial, a color scheme begins fading in, before the commercial ends. Funnily enough, every color within this color scheme has been represented by one of the doors. So, what if we were to turn these colors into numbers, based on the numbers from their doors, and then converting the numbers into letters by using the Gematria system? We get the following result. Alright, this doesn't make much sense. I might have fumbled this puzzle somehow. I mean, I haven't even employed the gray door with the color 1 on it anywhere. Maybe it's one of those dark blues where the 48s are? It could be. This puzzle will be so much easier if the video had a better quality, making these colors actually easier to distinguish. If only somehow, somewhere, an archive of these commercials in higher quality existed, something to facilitate all this and lead us to new clues. Well, there might just be something. Enter PDIB Digital Vault. On the 2nd of July 2021, a new channel was created on YouTube under the name of PDIB Digital Vault. If the logo of the channel seems familiar, it's because we've actually seen it already, right here. The channel contains re-uploads of some of the commercials from this ARG, but in much higher quality, while in fact censoring other elements from the commercials. The reason for these apparent censorships can be found in the channel's description, which reads, "Restricted to personnel with level 5 clearance. These archived files were recovered from the hard drives at the origin site. Note that these are simple digital video recordings of footage from Project VHS. These digital video files no longer share a link to this phonomograph or any associated tapes and are therefore safe for viewing. Removing footage from this server is still forbidden." I would like to point out that this channel's videos have been appearing as ads for some people. The uploader must have paid for ad space on YouTube, promoting these videos in order to subsequently promote his ARG, or make this channel easier to find. I can only imagine the confusion of the people stumbling on this stuff without proper context. Okay, let's check the Doors commercial once again. Well, I gotta say this is a huge improvement in quality, and now we can even see the black door bearing a Chinese character, C, which translates to 7. Even the colors of the rest of the doors are far clearer and easier to distinguish now, along with the color scheme at the end also looking far better. I mean, compared to the original one, of course. Alright, let's try this again. We assign values to colors, we convert the values into letters, and this is the result. Alright, this is already looking much better. Not perfect, of course. I haven't figured out how the Arabic text plays into this. It should technically be a number, but as I said, after translation, it results as reading what is wrong. The white door might also not be an 8. We already have the brown door reading ocho, or 8 in Spanish, so it makes little sense that the number 8 would appear again, so I must have fumbled it once more. Nevertheless, we now have enough information to complete the rest of the sentence, and even with one element missing and one potentially wrong element, the white one, the only word that could be spelled out of the remaining letters will be thoughts, reading this entire thing as Jester is evil thoughts. The exact significance of this message is up to interpretation, but it could potentially indicate the idea of the Jester as a character being the physical manifestation of a collective of evil thoughts. I'll let you draw your own conclusions on this one. For now, let's see what else we can find through the PDIB Digital Vault channel. The Nesquik ad is essentially the same, excepting the fact that the word dead along with Nesquik's head have been censored out of the video. While the in-universe explanation is that the videos no longer share link with the spheromograph, thus resulting in missing parts, I think the actual reason here is that if they weren't properly censored, they would have went against YouTube's terms of service and could have never appeared as ads. A similar censorship happens within the Icarus ad, where the person getting shot by a drone is censored out by a black bar. Once again, with the video being in higher quality, we can notice certain details better. Interestingly enough, this time a couple of details are far more evident. The person seems to have wings, and the hair is color green. An angel with green hair. Well, that's definitely a recurrent character in the series. Also, we can now read slightly better on the bottom of the can. We can see a crossword symbol and a slogan saying, "Helps give orphans wings." Well, as we are on the subject of angels with green hair, let's head to the video Pointing Creature. This is a re-upload in higher definition of the snippet that we've seen already. This time the text behind the angel is legible, reading, "What we call the humans' only mirror world, they call Earth. This fantasy of a world without elves, orcs, or other non-human sapiens was held in good regard by a bigoted but zealous few humans, that it gained structure in the trinitite that permeates the air of your world, the physical world. Earth is now a sub-realm within the chaos sphere. While its residents believe themselves to be humans, they're actually creatures of the chaos sphere, just like I am. Peace out." Once again, I'll let you draw your own conclusions and theories from this. Now, it's time to descend further into this rabbit hole. Notice how the text above the angel, "These jokes make no sense," has 3 odd elements within it. The first odd element are the 2 dashes at the beginning. The second is a lack of spaces between each word, and the third odd element is the period at the end. This most certainly looks like the address to a site. / "These jokes make no sense, period." And if we combine the following elements, the angel and the fire, we actually get a search result, redirecting us towards a blog. Now, there is a lot to unpack here, like, a lot. And I'm not going to do that, at least not in this video. What I'm going to do instead is make another video where I will simply read out the entirety of this blog, just in case you are the kind of person who would rather listen to someone reading stuff rather than reading it yourself. Either way, the video will be unlisted and the link to access it will be on the top right of the screen or in the description of this video. So now you can actually choose whether to sit through this entire thing or not. In case you chose not to, then I will provide a very short resume of this blog. The blog is a personal diary of sorts, of someone talking about their experience with amnesia. They narrate their feelings and document their experience along with showcasing various files they found on their computer's hard drive, which they do not remember creating, particularly a file named Jokes. a 3.24 megabyte size text file containing a bunch of random ASCII text. The author of the blog then proceeds to explain their discovery that the jokes.txt file is in fact a .mp3 file. By changing its format, they are now able to listen to the file. From there, every entry in this diary blog becomes far more disturbing, taking a turn to something that a few years ago people might have cataloged as a good creepypasta, rather than an ARG. A friend of mine attempted to dissect this entire page, looking for hidden messages or additional links within it by inspecting its elements and the page source, but that didn't yield any particularly interesting results. It seems that the only part worth dissecting here is the MP3 audio that we can download. So, let's start with the most obvious thing to do, and let's listen to the MP3 file. I'll go ahead and give you this disclaimer. Most of the words spoken through the file are hardly understandable. You'll be able to make out some bits here and there, but using headphones is definitely recommended for this part. The next disclaimer, and also a spoiler, but whatever, I think your ears are more important than a small spoiler. After the first minute, the audio will start including some screams, loud ones. So yeah, take care with the volume. I'm saying this from personal experience. And now, let's listen to the file. So, what were we able to hear in the audio file? First of all, a person singing on a piano, then what appeared to be as a male voice, possibly speaking through an interphone or a radio of sorts is heard, followed by very loud screams of what appeared to be children, possibly a small girl. Now, I don't want to try and jump to conclusions here, but could this be Theta, perhaps? Is this a sound recording of wherever Theta is, suffering whatever their captors are doing to her? Well, for now, let's continue dissecting this file. There are two things that I've done with this MP3 file. The first one was upload the MP3 file to ChatGPT, asking it to analyze it and attempt to reveal any hidden information within. Which was a good call. ChatGPT managed to find an embedded JPEG image within the file. Unfortunately, the image was corrupted and I couldn't view it. ChatGPT wasn't able to extract the image no matter how many times it tried. Fortunately, I'm blessed to have a friend really good with computer stuff, Makima from Chainsaw Man. I've presented him with his problem, and he managed to figure out the solution. For anyone who is well versed in computer science, this might not seem like much, but I was astonished by his work and genuinely impressed by how quickly he managed to find the solution. The image depicts a character that we've now seen recurring multiple times, the Jester. In this image we see the jester falling down while attempting to juggle multiple daggers and being made fun of by two kids wearing crowns. The jester takes revenge, sort of a last laugh kind of thing I assume, and is subsequently banished from the court. I would like to point out that this specific depiction of the children's souls is also present over Wizard's curtain. The next thing I did was open the file through Audacity, the software that I use to edit my own audio files and recordings before uploading them to YouTube, usually to slightly increase the quality of the voice, remove background noise, and stuff like that. Now, Audacity also has a spectrogram function, something I've attempted with other parts of this ARG because hiding stuff in a spectrogram is like ARG 101, but they didn't yield any result. At least not a result that was comprehensible to me, but more on that later. Anyway, by converting the file from waveform to spectrogram, we get this result. I honestly have no words to describe the feeling I had when I first saw this image. It was a bit of a shock, to be completely honest with you. Either way, I think that this might possibly be Theta, the same child we heard screaming in the audio file, the angel with green hair suspended by the ceiling in the Icarus commercial, her blood or ichor extracted and harvested to create a drink so strong that it could bring dead people back to life. A child who, after receiving her crossword symbol in the womb, perhaps through the use of an experimental method by the man of science who created the crossword and the Faces of Terror, is now doomed to a life of suffering, experimenting and exploitation of her power. A small detail that I would like to point out is that, while we might initially believe for that circle on top of Theta to be an angel's halo, it is more likely for the halo in question to be the ring of glyphs mentioned by Flameboy in episode 8, indicating that Theta's seed has already fully bloomed. The next element, or perhaps better said, the next character I want to talk about in this ARG is Captain Chromebones, the titular character, John Chromebone, from the hit video game Captain Chromebones in Treasure Defense. Captain Chromebones is a rather recurrent character within this series. As a matter of fact, the first time we see him is in a drawing hung on Wizard's wall, alongside a green-haired angel and a blue dragon, which bears a striking resemblance to the dinosaur we've seen already. Another instance of Chromebone's mention is actually right before his own commercial. During the second Gematsis commercial, the character I've nicknamed as Dual attempts to reveal something to the viewers before being quickly silenced.
I shouldn't be telling you this, but as a man who could help impede the dark machinations of these wrongdoers, he occupies the right most holy point. I don't know if he was recruited to their organization or if he's an outsider who will stumble upon the conspiracy, but I know that he escaped from the hive with one of the seated children. His armor would be made from an animatronic parrot starting copies from Minnesota.
His voice becomes slightly higher pitched, and through some experimenting in Audacity, by editing that part and reducing the pitch, I've been able to make a few words out, although I could be mistaken. This is the version I edited, and while I'll admit it's not a good edit, I think you can still make out pretty clearly every word he speaks. Give it a listen.
I shouldn't be telling you this, but as a man who could help impede the dark machinations of these wrongdoers, he occupies the right most holy point. I don't know if he was...
He's an outsider who will stumble upon the conspiracy.
But I know that he will escape from the hive with one of the seated children.
His armor would be made from an animatronic pirate skeleton taken from one of the old attractions. Hence why he'll be known as the Skull Captain.
What I can personally assume out of this message is that, while the man that Dual is referring to isn't Captain Chromebones itself, it is someone who resembles him by wearing Captain Chromebones' animatronic suit as an armor, thus being known as the Skull Captain. My second assumption is that this must have something to do with Buzzy Bombo's Fuzztastic Fun Hive. Since the words attraction and animatronic have been mentioned, it would only make sense, along with possibly the word Hive. So, what do we know about Buzzy Bombo's Fuzztastic Fun Hive? Well, this specific location appears in a commercial from episode 8. As we're briefly presented a view of the park in a 3D rendition, we're also given some information regarding the disaster that struck what I'm going to refer to from now on as the Hive. On the 30th of August 1959, 5 years after the Hive's inauguration, a newspaper headline informs that the Department of Geology, Botany and Climate warned that long-dormant pods of Rubus colossi utopiae beneath the valley surface are set to bud within the next 4 years, resulting in fissures and an increase of seismic activity in the area. Later on, through the same newspaper headlines, we find out that the park has been overrun by colossal vines that have seemingly invaded and overtaken the entire Hive as the park shuts down. I'm going to speculate here that this has connection with the events Dual warned us about. Now, the following reconstruction of events is purely my own speculation and my own theory. Please do not take this as a confirmed answer. I'm theorizing that, since we've seen a drawing of the Skull Captain, along with a green-haired angel hung on Wizard's Wall, the one I believe to be Theta, we could speculate that Theta was in fact being held captive into the Hive, as the park was actually just a front for a secret location where experiments on seeded children have been taking place. The Skull Captain, wearing the armor of one of the animatronics of the park, managed to rescue Theta, as the giant vines that engulfed the park might have possibly been a direct result of Theta's powers, awakened either intentionally or unintentionally. It is unclear what role the Blue Dragon plays into this. Now, as I've mentioned before, there are some elements in this ARG that I haven't been able to puzzle out. In fact, there's probably many solutions and puzzles that evaded me in the first place, and I want to talk about two of those. The first one is the cipher with the Blue Dragon. I haven't been able to translate that, but Ice Master managed to provide a solution to this puzzle in his video. I'm not going to go over the process of how that was possible. You should check his video for that, but if you're curious, the deciphered answer should read the following. Minotaur begat Orc, Leviathan begat Merfolk, Basilisk begat Nega, Wyvern begat Dragon, Man begat Man, Man begat Elf, Man begat Dwarf, Man begat Trouble, begat Out of My Way. Once again, I will highly recommend for you to check out Ice Master's channel, as he provides a further in-depth analysis to this and many other puzzles within the series, some of which I haven't been able to solve and I haven't included in my video, so you'll definitely find some more information there even after watching this entire thing. The second puzzle that I wanted to talk about was the one at the end of episode 6, where the uploader's VCR machine corrupts and displays an unknown message. Jeff, the owner of the channel Jeff Yacht, and his very talented friend Dave managed to provide us with the solution to that specific puzzle, reading, "You are not the hero of the story. There is one who may be. He is a lech, but maybe a good man. His name is 360. Once again, if you'd like to find out how Jeff and Dave managed to reach this solution, I will totally recommend you to check out his video. It was a fascinating process. The link will be in the description. Kudos to Jeff and his friend Dave once again. So, where was the number 360 mentioned already in the series? That's in episode 7, in What's in the Cards Today. There is a card reading that half-ghost men are sometimes called falconeers, because trying to control their mutation is like trying to keep a wild animal under their thumb. Ironically, 360 does have a bird familiar. The only person I can think about that could fit this description is the man from the show Full Growners, as he is depicted riding a bird. I'm not sure if this has a connection, but so far, Full Growners didn't really play into anything else, so it is possible for that man to be indeed our 360. So, what does 360 stand for? Obviously not a cool skateboard trick. Well, coincidentally, 360 is also a name. Remember the program What's in a Name? At the end of it, we receive a list of good names for kids. Coincidentally, the name Blurge Aladdin adds up to 360. So, is this our man, the man from Full Growners? At the moment, it appears to be so, and personally, I also believe for him to be the Skull Captain that escaped the Hive with one of the seeded children, supposedly Theta. This offers us additional context within the messages displayed in Captain Chromebunn's commercial, specifically the ones playing at the corruption minigame. Do you feel like a hero now? And you should have never taken her Icarus into your bloodstream. It will seem that during his escape with Theta, the Skull Captain, in an attempt to reinforce himself or to possibly survive a lethal wound, decided to drink from Theta's Icarus and is now corrupted, fighting to maintain control over his body and mind. So, what else can I say at this point? There are a lot of mysterious elements in this ARG, with each episode essentially just screaming, "Decipher me!" This series is the wet dream of any puzzle lover. The VHS Tapes of Olde managed to create a beautiful series which enthralls and captivates you more and more with each episode. I also believe that placing the most mysterious elements within the commercials that are, by themselves, not completely related to the main series is a stroke of genius. By offering what is an incomplete picture, we, the viewers, begin creating our own paracosm about this universe, which I think was partially the author's intention. The themes from this series range widely, aside the obvious themes revolving around duality, the existence of something greater than us, and the idea of another universe whose rules of life are dictated in such a wildly different way than ours, while being seemingly normal to the inhabitants of that world is fascinating, while still managing to maintain some forms of relatability and familiarity through the usage of common elements is also something I found to be amazing. I think there is a deeper story to be told within this ARG. We've seen many elements referencing science and religion. In itself, the series could be taken at front value, or it could be interpreted as an allegory for the currently existing possibility of a nuclear holocaust in our world. After all, we've seen the trinket particles being mentioned plenty of times, and the crossword and crossword plus symbol could also bear the meaning of what appears to be that universe equivalent of a nuclear bomb. A friend pointed out that the crossword symbol heavily resembles a sword of Damocles viewed from the bottom, which only reinforces the idea of impending doom. Overall, I think that the most important thing to take out of this series is what one of the fruits said during the Pulpit Paul ceremony. What's worth more, the creator's intention or the majority's belief? Maybe neither. And I think that applies here. It doesn't matter whether you decided to dig deep into this whole series, hyper-obsessing over every single detail, or whether you simply watched the 9 episodes and left it at that. Whether you believe that this is an allegory for a possible nuclear holocaust, a life lesson in the dangers of the progression of science, or a horror tale about an angel exploited for its power, in the end, what truly matters is neither. The real significance of this ARG and its true message are irrelevant, as long as what you derived from watching it was a sense of wonder and entertainment, and I think that in itself is perhaps the most important thing. This has been both a very difficult and fulfilling video to make, so once again I would like to personally thank the author of VHS Tapes of Olde for creating something so inspiring. I would also love to thank you, the viewer, for sitting through this entire video. If you're still watching here by the very end, it has to mean that perhaps you've actually enjoyed it. And if you didn't, then I'll actually thank you as well, for despite disliking me, or the video, or the editing style, or whatever your reason is for not liking this video in the first place, for actually staying up to the very end and deciding to hear me out. It means something, truly. With this being said, if you're interested into this ARG further, I will totally recommend once again for you to check out Icemaster's channel. He delved into this whole thing deeper than I have, alongside the channel Extra Jeff. He has a video called Planet Monsterous Morse Code Findings, which is currently sitting at barely 524 views. I'd say that's a complete disservice, as he managed to figure out a bunch of secret messages hidden within Morse code throughout the various shows. So even after watching this big video of mine, you'll still be able to find out something new. As always, I'd like to thank this channel's members for joining. If you'd like to do so as well, you can do that through the join button down below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of this video, and subscribe for more content in the future. With this being said, I hope you'll have a good night, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.